Hello and welcome to the Office Oregon Public Defense Commission office hours for February 2024. We are recording this presentation today, so because we are recording the meeting, recording and anything in the chat will be subject to public records law pursuant to ORS 192. And I think we'll just go around the room. My name is Shelley Dillon, a data and research analyst with the office, and I'll let my teammates introduce themselves.
Hello, I'm Maddie Davis. I'm a research analyst.
And my name's Harry Noon. I'm a data analyst. And we have other staff members here as well.
Right, so I think they have their videos on. So Megan, do you want to?
Hi, I'm Megan Doak. I'm a program analyst.
I can go next. I'm BJ McCartney. I'm also a program analyst.
And Adelina Hernandez, I'm a program analyst as well.
Yeah, I think we also
have my camera off. I'm Shannon Flowers. I'm the trial support and development manager.
Okay, so thank you all for joining us today. And this is, I guess, our second office hours opportunity to chat with you all. You guys can ask questions of us. We do have a small agenda prepared for today, but it's just merely supposed to be some talking points so that we can have a dialogue in the conversation. We're certainly open to other questions and suggestions, things that you may have, but this is primarily focused on caseload reporting. And I believe that with the analysts reviewing reports, there's a few things that have come to light that we would just like to highlight and go over with you. Disposition dates and disposition codes, case type codes, what types of cases that you should be reporting on your contracted monthly caseload reports, and what cases that you shouldn't be. And I think everyone here knows. If you don't know, on our webpage, and I will go ahead and share my screen. Okay, so everyone should probably be familiar with our caseload reporting page. And I would just like to remind you all that there are guides and little cheat sheets for you. I guess we call them reporting quick guides for criminal and juvenile. This should just be an easy guide for you to access and search for your case type codes. Specialty courts all have standardized codes now, and disposition codes and guidance of when to use. So those are available just as a reminder. I think the disposition dates and codes, if you've entered a disposition date, you have to have a code or vice versa. And I think there has been some codes showing up maybe in addition to or in the comments, or perhaps Megan, if you can help me remember, I think there was one example where a disposition code was entered into the comments, but there was no disposition date entered in the disposition date column. So just a reminder to fill out your reports correctly.
It was the code were in the comments column. And to be fair, I don't know if this is happening frequently or not, but there is a column for each of those things and separate.
Okay, we have mocked up a caseload report in just the Excel spreadsheet, which you have to upload in CSV format. These are all the columns that you guys should be very familiar with at this point in time. Disposition code and disposition date. Is this case an appeals case, comments, etc. So we wanted to go over something that we do with your data on the back end that is directly tied to your MAC reported. Harry says this very crisp and concisely, that the cases that you are appointed to in February need to be reported in February. So let's walk through our examples here. So this is the row 2 is John Smith. He has a misdemeanor. Your appointment date was January, and it's a new appointed case. So for January, John Smith again. He's a very busy person. There's a felony case. I can't find it. And it looks like Nick Miller was appointed, but then he withdrew on 1/30/2024. Then that case was reported again as a C felony on 1/3. It says Nick Miller withdrew again. So this would throw an error if you tried to submit this. You're missing the month, the client first name, last name, case number.
So since those 2 cases were reported by Nick Miller in January with the appointment date of January, that's great. He's going to get credit for that one because it's going to be flagged as an appointment. Because the report month and the appointment date will match. Then he withdrew at the end of the month on January 30th. So he reported that correctly with the withdrawal disposition code and the disposition date. Then the following month on the February report, Jessica Day gets appointed to the case. If she leaves the appointment date as the same day that Nick Miller was appointed to the case from the January 10th appointment date, and so she reports it in February with that January appointment date, she is not going to get the MAC associated with that case because that case will be flagged as an open case because it has an appointment date of a prior month since it's on the February report. When Nick withdraws, then she should get appointed to the case and we'll have a new appointment date, and that needs to be reported. So that was reflected in the second row there, and that's how that would correctly be reported, is with that new appointment date that matches February so that she can also get credit for that case. That's kind of one of those common things that we've been seeing happening, and we wanted to make sure that people are aware of it because it does affect if you get the credit for that case or not.
And the thing about our validation system is this type of reporting will not be rejected by our system, but it's an error that we see fairly commonly that affects the accuracy of how we're able to count your MAC, specific to these withdrawal problems. And in general, whether there's a withdrawal or not, it's best to report the case within the same month that you were appointed to the case. Some cases, get reported 2 or 3 months down the line, and this is a problem that we've discovered as well. Again, your reporting will be correct as far as validation, but it will induce some amount of error in our, statistical calculation of your MAC.
So Harry, if they get a case and then the order is assigned, they thought it'd be signed in February, it gets signed in January, they already submitted their January report, how do they correct that error? How do they include that case and correct that?
I mean, one option would be revising the January report to include it.
Okay.
That's probably I imagine that to be responsible for some amount of these delayed reporting examples. So I'm not sure if that would be the best advice, but at least one way to correct it.
So if they,
Yeah, I think they need to submit a corrected report. If they've misreported anything, they have to submit a new report. So this example here on the February report with an appointment date of January and an appointment date of February. If you're going to the submittal form and you're selecting February 2024, the report month and the report year are written on the back ends of our caseloads that we look at. So your report gets uploaded, the report month and the report year are written on the back end. So what we will see is the logic will say, oh, look, February report, your report month is February 2024. You have an appointment date outside of February. We are not going to flag this case as a new appointment with MAC associated with it, or any weight associated with it. That's called an open case in our system. The second case with an appointment date of 2/1/2024 is going to be flagged as a new appointment in February, and it'll be given the CFL weight for that case. That's in essence how we calculate your MAC each month. The cases you report to us, the appointment date must match the report month and year in order for us to apply our MAC calculation to that case record. Does that make sense to folks?
Yeah, I wonder if we can open up for questions, because this is kind of a tricky subject. If there are any questions, please raise your hand and we'll be happy to help.
Yeah.
Shelley, I think it's maybe an oversight, but the same case number is listed for two cases in the same report. So you wouldn't.
Yeah, I was trying to show an example. The first line is the incorrect way to report it in February, and then the second one is the correct way to report it with the updated appointment date.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I also
I
wanted to just also mention that if you missed a case and you're going to submit a new report to include that case, you have to submit it in its entirety, because it's going to overwrite the previous submission. So if you just put the case that was missed, then it's going to look like you just have one case. You want to add it to your previous submission and submit it as in its entirety.
Right. Our system does have some limitations where we can't accept just supplemental reports, but we can accept a new corrected report with any additions or updates or changes that you have. Are there any questions or feedback? Peter has something in the chat and I can't.
If someone submits a corrected report with an updated appointment date, will the MAC automatically update, or do you need to notify our analyst?
No, that's the beauty of the automated system. If you've submitted a corrected report and your appointment date matches your report month date, the month and the year that you put on the NENTEX form, the logic is going to be there, so you will automatically receive weighted MAC for that particular case. Are there any other questions or comments? I'm looking at the names of our participants, and you guys seem like you're seasoned people. Maybe this is not new to you.
And I suppose if there are, the floor is open. So if there's questions on anything else.
Okay.
Someone said, I had a case where the attorney was appointed on the case reporting date and the case resolved before the next case reporting So it wasn't reported. The only way to fix it is to submit an amended report. So I'm thinking this is the case is appointed and resolved within the same month. So that case would indeed need to appear on that month's caseload report. It would just, the very first time that case appeared, it would also have the disposition date and code filled out. But you would need to go back and add that case to that month's report and then resubmit the whole report.
Mhm.
And even if the case is resolved within the same month as the appointment, you would still obviously get credit for that appointment.
Correct. Right. Don, did that answer your question? Okay, thank you.
It's supposed to be nice if they all resolved within the same month.
Well, sometimes you get a better deal if they hold out long, right?
Well, I guess that's true.
So yeah, the report month and year and the appointment date, that is how we designate between open cases and appointed cases. And appointed cases have the MAC values associated with them, which trickles down to your MAC reported, which then is, compared to your monthly prorated MAC. Megan has her hand up.
I was just going to mention that if anyone is wondering if they have any errors like this or is concerned they do, that the analyst can provide them with a report, look it up for them and let them know if they do have any instances where we show that you reported a case for the first time in a month after the appointment date.
Okay. Okay, so Don has another question about disposition codes. CONS.
It means CONT, is that,
CONS is a disposition code.
oh,
Is that code going to continue to be an option? Is that,
It currently is an option. I'm not sure who provided that guidance.
Kevin Hoopy.
CONS is the client enters a conditional or consolidated plea?
Yeah,
Mhm.
I've had some attorneys in our office asking if they should use it, and his reply to me was that he thinks that we would lose data granularity and fidelity by using that code. Instead of for each case, the specific, this was dismissed, this was PLLC. Does that make sense?
As of right now, you are able to use that code. We will certainly loop back around with Kevin to understand his guidance.
Okay.
Yeah, it's still a valid disposition code. And that does seem like a judgment call on the attorney's side of how that case was resolved. So as Maddie said, it still is an option, and we'll loop back around. Well, what is your concern about I'm sorry, my eyes are failing in my old age. RTND would be added. Is that for retained?
Yeah,
that's
it
the
seemed like
idea.
that was discussed like back in October that was going to be added. So it hasn't. And I was just curious if that's not going to happen.
So you must have been on the manual, the work group for the manuals. Were you a participant in that, Dawn?
Yeah.
Okay, we have not issued those yet. And if when we do issue those, if there are any changes, we will certainly communicate what changes have been made and when they're effective. So I think everything is sort of on pause right now with those, the updating and the issuance of the new manuals. So please know that if there are any changes of what you can or cannot use for disposition codes, we will make sure and highlight that and make sure it's communicated and the effective date of such change. Yeah, that's a great point. Thank you. Okay, Ron, how should I report a case that changes case types within the same month? Example, specialty case appointment, like a Dewey diversion, but the case does not stay in diversion, but is set back for trial. 2 separate entries, or should we change the case to 1 entry? Does the essence change if we are appointed in trial in a subsequent month? Okay, so Ron, at first you would report it. So are they designated as a specialty case at the beginning? Or do you go into court on the Dewey and then they're referred into diversion?
Am I audible?
You are.
Oh, okay, wonderful. Well, we run the specialty court in Washington County for the diversion docket. So a case could come in just for the diversion purpose, but for one reason or another doesn't stay diversion. And then many of those cases that are no longer being processed as a diversion case are set on down for good old-fashioned negotiations and trial, and we'll get a percentage of those. So do I just change the DUIID code to DUIS when that happens, or do I have one row with the DUIID and then a subsequent row with the same case number, but now it's a DUIS? That's basically what I'm wondering.
I would say yes. Yes, you should report it if this case was flagged as a diversion case and you initiated diversion, but then they opted out of it, and then it became a case in the regular criminal court docket. You should report that as such, because that also highlights the legal points of that case. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And I think that's a nuance that we would want to be able to see that nuance, I think, as the case develops, right?
Okay.
Right.
And
So are you, can I ask you a question? Are you is the same attorney on the specialty court docket, the same one that would represent them on the criminal docket?
Both yes and no would be the answer.
Okay.
So one, sure, but then another one, no. It depends on who's available.
I think you're fine there, because even if you are the same attorney and it's the same appointment date, your case type is different. So the system should allow that case to come through, because one is a diversion docket, the other is a regular criminal case code.
Okay. And so I won't get a error flag, even though they're the exact same case number.
You should not get an error flag. If you do, email me immediately.
You should only get an error flag for duplicates if every column in 2 or more rows is the same.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Welcome.
Dawn had another question.
It looks like someone has their hand up, so I'm not sure who is first. Jessica. I'm sorry, I can't see your last name on my.
It's Schmidt. Thank you.
Okay.
I just had a quick question, similar to Ronald. If they initially were appointed as like a C felony, and then the state amends and charges a higher crime, is it just appropriate just to amend that code for the next report if it happens within that month, or do we go back and change the previous?
No, not for up charges. You should report that if it was a CFEL in January, then they increased it to a like ballot measure 11 or BFEL in March, then you would report it as the highest charge in March.
Okay.
I have a question about that, Shelley. So if you change that, if in March you change it to a measure 11, will the weight show up if it's not shown up in the month where it's counted as an appointment? Or will it only show up in their open caseload? So like if I got it in November and it's a C felony, and then in January it's now a measure 11, and I changed the code to a measure 11 in January, is it going to give me the appropriate weight if I don't change it in the month that it was assigned to me?
I think the answer is that if you do not change the original row, then you would not get the marginal weight of the upcharge, let's say.
So
So
I would
that's a
need to
tricky.
submit the November report with the, how would I go about fixing that so that I, for instance, have a assault 4 that then turns into an assault 2, and there's a big weight difference between a misdemeanor and a measure 11. So how do I go about getting that captured for rating purposes?
I think that's a very good scenario. And I think if that happens, they should contact their analyst. We can sort out. I don't think we've ever encountered this scenario before. And that is a very good point, especially for upcharging cases. I know one remedy would be to ask for an extraordinary case credit on that case, to explain that it's been, upcharged. But I think that's something we need to explore and vet out, and maybe put out a scenario or frequently asked questions about what to do if the case is upcharged significantly, because that is right, especially from going to a measure 11 weight. That is significant.
It does seem to be a dilemma because we want to see the nuance of that, I think.
Right.
But on the other hand, we want to make sure the weight is captured accurately.
And then I did
Exactly.
want to, the same point, so the attorney that was originally assigned was qualified for the C felony, but now that it has been upcharged, we have to reassign it within our firm because it's a different qualification. How would I
Mhm.
report that attorney switch also? Is it still within that month? Is that?
Yes.
in it?
So, okay, so attorney A is appointed on January 5th. It's a C felony credit. Then they upcharge, and that attorney has to withdraw on, let's say, the 15th. So that case would be reported for that attorney as the appointment date on the 5th, a withdrawal on the 15th. The case would be reported again by the new attorney with the new appointment date and the new case type. Yeah.
Okay.
The key would be making sure attorney B has the appropriate appointment date.
Correct.
Okay.
And
Perfect. Thank you.
not simply repeating the first appointment date.
Exactly. Okay, so I think Dawn had another, oh, did you answer her question? Does Dawn have an outstanding question in the chat?
I think so. She says, what about when count 1 is in diversion, but count 2 is on a trial track?
Megan said we would use a disposition code for the diversion case to close it out. Oh, wow. That's a tricky one. I'm not sure I have an answer for that. So it's one case number, one charge is in diversion, but the other one is being tried in regular court.
Yeah, in Multnomah County, there's usually sort of a time in between the client goes into diversion and the other counts are dealt with. A lot of times they wind up going into like a reckless set over deal. But occasionally there are counts where they go to trial. And I don't think we report our diversion cases as specialty, but I'm wondering in those cases, while there are still case charges that might go to trial, would I use the DIVR disposition code because count 1 is in diversion, or would I wait to add that until the other counts are dealt with?
Well, which count is the highest? What is the highest charge? I think you have to stick with,
Technically, yeah, the DUIs are higher than misdemeanors. Is that still the
right?
case? Okay, so yeah, so I would use the disposition code.
I think so. If you have Dawn, when you come across that again, who is your program analyst?
Alina.
Alina, if you could toss her a case number so we could look at that. And just to make sure that we're giving the correct guidance, but I would always just default to the highest charge on the matter. But you do bring up an interesting point. These are very interesting little scenarios that we're learning about here. So this is good. It's good to
Okay.
have this conversation.
Will do, thanks.
Okay. Megan, so to Megan's comment in the chat about the diversion, I need to refresh my memory to see what our disposition codes are for specialty court matters. Because I could see how I think I need to look at that one before I respond.
There is a disposition code, just to note that it went into diversion, correct?
But if it comes out, they opt out
Oh.
of diversion. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So that is a little tricky one. We'll have to look into that. And
Jessica has her hand up, I believe. Go ahead.
I think I took it back down. I might have been delayed on that. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
I guess, Megan, to answer your scenario about Ron's question about a case was tagged as going into diversion, and then he could use other, I guess, the case is disposed of for reasons not specified. I don't know if we have a specific one that says that they opted out of the diversion program once they were in. So other is our catch-all.
If I can give a little context to two of the scenarios that have been referenced, common things I experience are one option is a person comes in, the DAs had initially coded him as diversion eligible. I get it, he's not diversion eligible. So of course he doesn't go into diversion. It's set on down for further investigation, trial, all that sort of stuff. So that's what I was first envisioning with my question. But then there were, I believe Megan, whomever, came up with another thing that we also get all the darn time in my jurisdiction, which is same case number. We get drunk driving, we get reckless driving, criminal mischief, and maybe they're even more creative. Well, I can, depending on various criteria, I can divert both the drunk driving and quite often the reckless driving, but that'll still leave criminal mischief. And then so I've diverted some of the case. Now that criminal mischief is set on down for trial. And then so as far as understand how these things happen.
Right. So does it really go all the way to trial, or does it resolve?
Well, any given case could go either. I mean, most of the time, if the charge is actually criminal mischief, I'm going to try for a civil compromise probably, but they'll have FIPOs and other things that very well might. So, but that's a case by case sort of thing. So some will ultimately end up with a jury trial, although I still, just like generally most cases, you'll resolve one way or the other before that, but it's set for the trial status as far as.
Right. Yeah, that is an interesting scenario that I don't know if we have an answer to today. And we'll have to look at that scenario and come back to you all, because that I can see how that case is not really a specialty court case, and it's not, I mean, it's both, right? So how do we acknowledge that you're working this case in a specialty court and in the regular trial docket? And we don't have an answer to that. So this is a good conversation to have, and we'll see what we can come up with in the near future. But I would, again, for right now, I would say default to the highest charge. And if you do get a scenario where your client is in special or diversion on certain charges and you're going to trial on other charges, I think that case is unique and not the norm, and that would probably qualify for you to use the extraordinary case circumstance form to get additional weight for that matter.
Okay, thank
But
you.
yeah, thank you for the context.
Oh, sure. Just a little more context. In our county, we would actually get two separate appointments the way our judges would handle it. There would be one that's for the specialty, and then after my state, the judges will actually do a whole separate appointment. That's why many will come to me and many will end up with one of the other providers. So just as far as a little more context, but thank you.
Okay, sure.
So there's two separate appointments. That makes it much easier to take, right?
On the same case, I guess.
So same case number.
Mhm.
Oh. Okay. That doesn't make anything.
Well, but does it? Can they could still report it, the same case number with a different attorney and a different appointment date,
Right.
different case type codes, and both could get credit.
Right.
Yeah, okay. Okay, is there anything else? I know we were going to also talk about what cases to report on your reports. Your privately retained cases should not be on your contractor monthly caseload reports. If you are taking cases from the THIP program or the increased hourly rate program, cases off of the unrepresented list, and you are billing for those cases at an hourly rate, those cases should not appear on your contractor monthly caseload. It's just the cases that you're taking under your contract that account towards MAC.
As well as the standard rate cases should not appear on the.
Exactly. So if we are paying you an hourly rate, they should not be appearing on your monthly contract caseload reports. Are there any questions about that designation? Because yes, you are court appointed on a contract case and you are court appointed on an hourly case. That doesn't necessarily mean they qualify as a contract caseload report case. Because they're compensated for in different ways. Let's see. Is there any other questions, comments around caseload reporting or anything that anyone's curious about? Opening the floor wide open here. I might regret it. Okay, well, it's 12:40. You don't have to stay if you don't want to. You are free to go. We're just trying to be available for the contract community for questions, concerns.
It looks like Dawn has her hand up again. Go ahead, Dawn.
Clarification.
Yep, sorry, me again. I was just curious if you know what the timeline is for the dashboard.
Yeah, the dashboard, that got put on hold. The public facing dashboard got paused for a little bit. I don't have a timeline to report back to you. I know we are exploring some technical options in our office. I don't have an update right now, but I will certainly relay your question back to management that there's an inquiry of when that's going to be published. That's a non-answer to your question.
You should run for office.
Yeah. Okay. All right, well, we will hang out here for a little bit. Like I said, you're free to go if you'd like to. If you have any other questions, we'll hang out here for a little bit. And be available should you want to ask something, and if you have something that you want to ask your analyst or us in private, you can always reach out and set up a meeting if you don't feel comfortable asking your question on this forum. We do have a commission meeting scheduled for tomorrow, so hopefully you all can join and watch the commission meeting.
I suppose if there's no more questions in a few minutes, we can call.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
So I know it says Peter. I'm his legal assistant. He couldn't be here today, but he asked me to sit and listen in.
Okay.
Something that I think we run into a lot is when we're unsure of what the appropriate code is for the specific situation that we're running into, trying to deal with figuring that out before getting the caseload report in. Sometimes that timing doesn't always line up. Do you guys have any preferences on how to deal with that? Like, is it better to get the report in on time with maybe the incorrect code and resubmit later? Do you guys have any preferences around those issues?
Are you talking about a case type code or a disposition code?
Disposition codes. The dependency and delinquency side, as they close out, it tends to be a little bit more, there tend to be a lot of unique situations on how those kind of close out and things like that.
Okay. I would say maybe if you have questions about that, reach out to your analyst or somebody on the data team to help you maybe work through those specific scenarios. Let's see, let me go to the reference guide for. Okay, can you give us an example of maybe something you guys work with? And this is juvenile, not PCRP, correct?
Yeah, just juvenile dependency and delinquency cases. He gets them sorted out. It's just that sometimes the timing doesn't always, he's not always able to figure out what kind of questions are coming up until it's a little closer to the deadline than we might like. And so just kind of figuring out that that balance of getting it correct versus getting it in by the deadline.
Okay. Yeah, we appreciate deadlines, but we also appreciate accurate data as well. Can you see my screen? Okay, so these are the disposition codes for juvenile case types. So I guess I would be curious what the scenarios are that he wrestles with, and maybe we could provide some context or some clarification. There's the description is pretty, clear what, but I guess if you had like a scenario you could help us out with, maybe next time.
I'll follow up with him and see if he has any specific ones that that maybe would be worth exploring a little more.
Okay, and do you guys use this disposition code cheat sheet as you're filling out your, okay.
Keep in mind, you always have the ability to amend a report that you submit.
Yeah, okay, sounds good.
Yeah, and the OTHR is the catch-all, not otherwise specified. So
Perfect.
not that we want everybody to use that code, but if you have questions, let us know. We're happy to work with you through those scenarios. Yeah, and I'm sorry, you said your name, but I didn't get it. Can you please repeat your name?
I'm Peter's legal assistant, Talon.
Can you say your name one more time?
Talon.
Talon? Okay. All right. Not a problem. Just trying to get names and names associated together. Talon. Okay. I heard it right. I sometimes don't hear right or see right. Okay. Anything else from our invited guests? Okay. Well, thank you for attending. We'll post this link to the recording on our website. Hopefully within the next day or so. And we thank you for your time and your questions. And sounds like we have a few things to follow up on, maybe at next month's office hours. All right. Thank you all.
Thanks, everybody.